How are
Morning,
y'all?
Good morning.
Morning.
morning. Okay.
Do what?
I said good morning.
Good morning. All right, let's roll. All right. Well, interesting football over the weekend. I'll leave that there. All right. Fulton County. So
You just gotta throw that out there and then be like, I'm just gonna leave that right there. And
look, I'm not gonna diss on anybody. And I will celebrate those that had great wins. Um, The inventory Fulton County came in at 759 last 7 days. Pretty big number. We've been talking about how the inventory kind of tapered down. You know, the week of Thanksgiving obviously took a break. So maybe there's a little extra inventory this week of people that just push things out a week. Um, but what I am encouraged by is 107 went active under contract. And while we had a couple weeks that were 140, 129, 119, uh, I'll take 107. I feel like that's quite a few people that went under contract in the last 7 days in Fulton County. Obviously, 43 the week before was a punt, if you will, if we're going with football analogies. But the 277 pending is the one I'm most encouraged by. That is a big number going into the last month of the year. And 332 closings in the last 7 days is phenomenal. Um, if you think that's a 7 day total, that does not include November, end of November closings. That's literally first week of December closings. And that's a big number for Fulton County. Obviously, we've seen some 333s, 345s, 323 at the end of October. But if you look back, we were kind of 169, 240, 229. So 332 is a lot of properties that closed out in the last 7 days, which I'm just really encouraged by. Jason, what do you think?
I agree. I think the pending number is really the one that stands out to me because I know a lot of my friends that are listing agents, they don't change it at all. They go from active straight to pending. If there's the due diligence period, they leave it active. And
Yeah.
so when I see that big jump in pending, it makes me feel really good about what December is gonna bring.
Yeah. I'm expecting December to be fairly strong. I don't think it's
I,
going to be over the top wild, but I do think it's going to be much better than we thought it would be 6 months ago. If you look at DeKalb County, inventory 375 is very healthy, 69 active property under contract. I'm trying to get a comparison. It's consistent. We had 1 week before Thanksgiving at 90, 1 week at 79. Obviously, Thanksgiving week was a lull, but 142 pending going into the month in DeKalb County is very healthy. It builds throughout the month. So we were 163 this time last month. We're 142 right now. But you had 207 properties close out in the last 7 days. And if you look back across here, we haven't had 2 weeks at 200 closings in DeKalb County in a while. So, really, really healthy movement in the market for sure. And that's quite encouraging. If you go out to Cobb County, you got 342 active status changes. They were in the 500, 600, so 348 seems low, yet that's normal this time of year for inventory to slow down. They had 66 go active under contract. Is that low? Not low, but certainly not where we were seeing. So there's certainly a 2 week lull that happened in Cobb County of properties going under contract. yet they've got a really healthy pending number at 164. Um, and then 228 closings in the last 7 days. There was 227 3 weeks ago, but you look back, anything over 200 is huge for Cobb County. So for the first week of December to have 228 close out is phenomenal. So maybe the leading indicators are lagging a little bit, but the lag indicators look great. So I feel quite encouraged. What do you see?
Same. Yeah. Dana had a question about the influx of withdrawals between the three counties that we looked at so far.
Yeah, so remember, most real estate agents, right or wrong, write their listing agreements to expire at the end of the months. So you do see inflated numbers of expired listings the first week of every month. So you saw it here the first week in November, and you're seeing it again here. But it's just a reminder that, man, there's still 30% of the market that's not selling, give or take. So if that's part of your lead generation plan, expireds are back, baby, as they might say. All right. Interest rates still holding around that 6.25. We're going to talk a little bit around what the economists are saying around interest rates today. But I want to hit this article from Zillow real quick. So before I jump into this, Jason, I want to preface part of our conversation today is the economists are all over the place right now. And there's conflicting opinions, conflicting predictions, and we're going to try to help you make sense of it. But I want you to be a little caution taking one economist's prediction and taking that to the bank as reality because they're not all lining up at the moment. Um, so what Zillow and Zillow's economists are saying is some pain, some gains. Here's where Zillow sees home prices in your market going next. So if I hover over Atlanta, come on, work with me, article. It doesn't want to work with me. Why doesn't it want to work with me today?
It's 1.1%. I'll hover with you.
Okay.
So it's a 1.1% increase.
Up.
Up.
Okay, so they're projecting 1.1. I don't know why mine's not working. Um, so Zillow's projecting Atlanta, Metro Atlanta, having a 1.1% price appreciation. I would caution you and encourage you. The caution is that's basically a flat price prediction, in my opinion. And I guarantee you there's certain pockets that are going to have much greater and certain pockets that are actually going to have price depreciation. But for the large, big picture general statement, there's just not going to be a lot of price appreciation in 2026. Now, the good news is we expect it to go up slightly. So we might dodge the statement that prices are going backwards, but you're not going to see big price gains in 2026. Um, the other thing is uh, there's this comment that I keep reading about that says mortgage rates are going to remain stubborn throughout the next year. So what I do believe will happen is there's going to be a push to get the rates down as close to 6% as possible. I think some great lenders might be able to lock some people in the high fives, but the expectation around mortgage rates is 6 is probably going to be the normal mortgage rates for most of 2026. And remember, that's a great historic mortgage rate. So the good news is I don't see a lot of change. So you're not going to be dealing with people that are trying to play the rate game very much. I think you're just going to be dealing with people that have warmed up that 6% is a normal interest rate, and it's a good interest rate historically. So that's probably what rates are going to be. Um, Zillow is expecting home sales to go up 4.3% next year. Now, I don't know if you remember, but NAR projected a 14% increase in home sales next year. Those numbers are nowhere in the same ballpark. So where do I think it's going to be? I think NAR is a little bullish in their prediction. I don't think we're going to see 14% increase next year. Uh, I think it's probably closer to what Zillow's predicting. But I do think you're going to see another economist here that's going to predict less than 4%. I think we're going to sell more homes next year. I will be encouraged if it takes off, but I don't expect it to go a double digits. I think we'll probably in that 3 to 7% increase, somewhere in that range in home sales next year, which is a healthy, good increase. Uh, this one is painful. Zillow said 53% of homes lost value last year. Now, if I lost 0.0001% value, they're putting me in that 53%. So I don't think there's enough data to really give an analysis to that. But the reality is prices are flat in 2025, and they're probably going to be flat in 2026. So there's going to be pockets where people had to do some price reductions to get the property sold. And there's also going to be pockets where they're a little hotter and experiencing a little price appreciation. So it's going to be a little more hyper local conversation, but be cautious of the media going on a limb saying prices are going backwards. I think in certain areas maybe, but I don't know why my graph's not working, but like Dallas,
Scroll
Texas,
down, Brad.
Dallas, Texas is predicting 0.5% down. South Florida is projecting one something percent up. Atlanta's projecting 1.1% up. So it's going to be very hyper local, and I don't think you're going to be able to trust the headline news per se around that comment next year. But they're saying home prices nationally should climb 1.2%. My opinion, going back to like high school economics, they always have a margin of plus or minus 2%. Anything less than 2% is flat. Anything less than 2% decline is flat, in my opinion. It's going to be very hyper local. What do you make of this, Jason?
Well, I think I literally dusted off the Magic 8 Ball today because it's like you were saying earlier, depending on which article you click, it's doom or gloom or buckle up, buttercup, here we go. And it's just kind of fascinating to see how everybody is trying to get people to click on their article about what's going to happen. And the reality is the only thing we can control is what we can control.
Yep.
So I like the 1.1% because that shows growth, but we don't know. I think it's kind of interesting how the Sun Belt isn't consistent. It's like Atlanta, South Carolina, North Carolina is one thing, but you look at Texas, Louisiana, and most of Florida, they're saying cool.
Yeah.
And normally the Sun Belt's the Sun Belt.
What's interesting, like Warner Robins is projecting almost 3% price appreciation. Columbus is projecting 1.9. Athens is projecting 3.2, but Atlanta Metro is projecting 1.1.
I think it's also a volume thing. The more data you have, the less extreme you're going to get as far as the changes go.
There you go. All right, next economist. So this guy, Windemere's principal economist, Jeff Tucker, here's his 6 predictions. Existing home sales will pick up barely. So he's being much more like maybe just a little bit. Everybody's expecting a sharp rebound, but the pieces are in place for a modest uptick. One thing he is talking about is inventory levels. So inventory levels are higher than they've been since 2019, and mortgage rates are lower than they've been since 2022. That combination should be enough to nudge existing home sales upward next year, but just not by much. But I'm going to jump to another article real quick. So this is an article on Housing Wire, and you see the gray line at the top is inventory levels in 2019, and the dark red line is where we're at year to date in 2025. So the expectation of inventory is that the levels of inventory are going to be back to pre-pandemic levels by the end of this year, which is basically 2019 levels. So is that good or bad? It's not enough data to say. What I mean by that is we need inventory to have a healthy housing market. It was fun during the pandemic, but we had very low inventory, and we sold quite a few houses, and it was a different market, right? Like we kept screaming on these calls, like we need more houses, go list more houses, right?
Mm-hmm.
So as long as inventory is good, that's the supply factor. We need demand to increase at the same level. And as long as demand comes up, this is a good thing. If demand doesn't come up, this could turn out to push us into a buyer's market that causes price decline. Make sense?
And that's the good thing about that article, that the Housing Wire article is it's saying that, 18 weeks of near 6% has gotten buyers that have been waiting to finally bite the bullet, and that the demand and the applications for purchase are up to 3-year highs.
Yeah, for sure. All right, home prices will remain roughly flat. I agree with that statement. Inventory will climb to pre-pandemic levels. We talked about that. Uh, this one is sad. Says the homeownership rate will decline. I think it's sad, and I think it's probably true. I think affordability remains a challenge. And I've got an article in a minute that's going to talk about this a little bit. But homeownership rate will decline. Add this to the growing share of renters who are opting for single family homes because they speak to space and lifestyle. You know, Jason, I don't know that we focus or actually do quite a bit of leases. I remember when I was new agent, that's how I paid my bills. I did an enormous amount of leases. And I don't know that our newer agents are still doing that, but our experienced agents come in contact with people that want to lease instead of buy. Maybe you have a junior agent that you're attached to and that you take referral fees or stuff like that with. But if the market is saying that there's going to be quite a bit of rentals, maybe you rethink that as a small part of your business strategy. I don't know. But we'll hold on to that one. We will avoid a recession in 2026. I agree with this. I think we were teetering on one, but I don't believe we will be in a recession next year. And then mortgage rates will decline slightly. I do think we'll stay below 6.25. I think we'll try to push as close to 6% as possible. I think your great lenders might get a couple people locked in the high fives, but don't count on that as a normal interest rate for next year. Make sense?
Yep.
All right. The other thing on this Housing Wire article we keep talking about is this mortgage purchase application index. So you noticed back in August when the interest rates finally got below that mythical 6.64%, the mortgage application started trending up. Well, I'm expecting this trend to continue to go in a positive direction. And we're still seeing it climbing, which is future people buying houses. And that's a really positive thing to be tracking right now. Make sense?
Clear as mud.
All right. Uh, let's go somewhere else for a sec. So there's this article that says, yes, you do buy real estate leads. You just don't realize it. And he kind of pokes fun at our industry because there's a little bit of a rally cry from real estate agents that say, I never buy leads for my business. I'm all referrals, I'm all database. And then he goes into this story where he says, a while back, I was sitting down with a successful team leader who was running a solid business. He was sharp, experienced, and confident in his model. But during our meeting, he made it a point to tell me, we don't buy leads. We never will. I asked him a single follow up question. Well, what about your ISAs? Don't you pay them to prospect and book appointments? And he paused and he said, whether you want to admit or not, he was absolutely buying leads. And it made me rethink this conversation a minute, Jason, where the resources of a real estate agent are time and money. And I think we think buying leads means we're paying some aggregator or spending money on Facebook ads. But the truth is, some agents are spending money on content creation.
Yep.
Some agents are spending money on expired withdrawals. Some agents are spending money on marketing. And the reality is, all that money and time is actually spent on lead generation. So, in a way, whether you're spending your time or your resources, you are buying the leads in this business. Um, I talked to an agent, it blew my mind. It was an agent in South Florida that does 60 million a year. And I said, well, what's your lead generation, machine? And he does it through direct mail. And my jaw hit the ground. And I was like, what? And he said, yeah. He said, everybody else stopped doing it. I doubled down on it. And I still build my business through direct mail. And I thought, wow, I hadn't heard that in years. And he's doing 60 million a year. So everybody has their niche, but the reality is you are spending your resources, whether it's time or money, to build this business. And maybe you just read this article and rethink of how am I investing in my lead generation going forward? It was just a weird perspective that shifted my thinking a little bit. What did you get?
Oh, this was a gut punch for me. My coach, Laura, years ago challenged me because I was one of the ones that's like, I've never bought a lead. She's like, the hell you haven't. She said, have you taken someone to dinner expecting a referral? And I said, yeah. She said, you bought a lead. It's just different. So I think a lot of people, one thing I would take away from this is I think a lot of people are spending money in their lead generation, but they're not actually categorizing it as lead generation.
Yeah. I mean, social media, and obviously with Social Media Con coming to Family Reunion in February, um, I think Matt Pitt's on here. We had a conversation last week, like he was giving me a hard time that I don't post enough. And I said, well, I need help. Like, I need somebody to follow me around and film me and turn it into something cool. And it's making me think like, should I be spending money on content creation? Should you be spending money on content creation if that's a lead arm source? Know what I mean? And are you buying leads? Yeah, heck yeah, you're buying leads. You're spending money for lead generation,
Yep.
right? All right, let's see where we want to go. All right. Ryan Serhant wrote this article on Fox Business, and I think it's an interesting thought. He says his daughter will have to figure it out as housing market resets for Gen Z. And the way he kind of positioned this is he said, look, young Americans need to forget the familiar story of my dad bought a house for 50 grand because that world is gone. And today's buyers are facing a new housing reality where affordability, ownership, and even the American dream look far different from those of previous generations. So, first question I was asking myself is today's generation buying real estate, is the situation different than previous generations?
100%.
Potentially, right? And then he said, look, you've got to understand that your baseline starts right now. We're not going back anywhere. We're not going back to the rates and the market we had in 2021. We're not going back to 2015. We're also not going back to 1991. And it reminded me of this chart that Jason and Gary always put on the screen. And if somebody was buying their first home in 1990, this was their baseline. This was their reality.
Mhm.
Somebody was buying a house here. This was their baseline, their reality. And tomorrow's generation, this is their baseline and this is their reality because that's where we are in the moment in time. And then we've had conversations around Nepo buyers. We've had conversations around, are we helping people set the right expectation that their first home isn't going to be the Taj Mahal perfect? Um, and I still think homeownership is such an important part of people's wealth and an important part of people's future. We just got to help counsel these people around, hey, this is your baseline. This is your reality to get into the game, right? And I remember even when I bought my first house in like the late 90s, I still remember thinking my parents telling me they paid 12 grand for their first house. You know what I mean? Like, I think that story will always be just like every generation makes fun of their parents saying they walk both ways uphill in snow to school. And there's always going to be that story of yesterday, but we've got to get people in tune with what their baseline is. Matt, come on screen. What are you trying to say here?
Sorry, I don't have a voice, but doing my best. I was just saying every generation starts with some sort of different baseline. I think we always have the story we tell in our head, and we can make excuses over and over, but it's really the people that take ownership of the circumstances that they're in that go and actually figure it out and get conditions that they can buy and create wealth for their family down the road. That's all I was saying.
Yep, perfect.
And Brett, I read something a little different in it
Yeah,
because when I was raised, I was told this is what the map to your life is going to look like. You're going to graduate high school, you're going to go to college, you're going to meet someone, you're going to get married, then you're going to buy a house. Then you're going to have 2.2 kids and 3 dogs and a cat and a fish. And I think the reality of it is there are so few people that actually live in that storyline, but people think that that's the storyline. You have to be married and have dual income in order to buy a house. And so when I read that, and it's like they're gonna have to figure it out because life's different now. That's kind of what I took from it.
yeah, it's interesting. Couple other quick articles. So, Jason, the Civic Center Apartments. This is down there by Pont City Market and all that. It looks like they're revamping it and building affordable units for low income seniors. It also looks like they plan to develop all around it. Um, and the government is certainly putting resources towards affordability inside the city limits, right?
Yep.
And obviously, I don't think this is an income opportunity. This is more of an awareness opportunity so that you know what's going on in your city, and the efforts they're making around affordability. The other article on here is West Midtown. This I find interesting. It's a modular apartment complex. They're rapidly pushing in West Midtown. Um,
They're made from shipping containers. This is
yeah,
the one to open.
100 apartments called Waterworks Village, which is near where we do a lot of our events, right?
Yep.
It's supposed to be the first modular multifamily project built in the city. Uh, I find it interesting. Once again, I don't think these are opportunities for you to go sell, but I think it's talking points and awareness around your city and the efforts they're making around housing affordability centrally located to the city. Make sense?
Yes.
Jason, you're my host. You have to talk to me.
I
All
mean,
right.
yeah, it makes sense. I mean, I think the Civic Center, for anyone that's lived in Atlanta for any length of time, I think the Civic Center redevelopment is like the Gulch 2.0. They keep talking about it over and over and over again, and one plan falls apart, and then someone else says they're going to do it. So to see that they're actually breaking ground is really, promising. To see what actually comes of it, we will see. Because again, when we're talking about redeveloping the Gulch, which is now Centennial Yards, there was supposed to be a whole bunch of affordable housing in that area, and there is not any.
Yeah.
And the developers actually paid back the tax credits that they got to not have the affordable housing. So it's just kind of interesting to see. Again, I'm glad to see that they broke ground and that they are moving forward with someone, but I'll just keep an eye out to see what actually happens to it.
Yeah.
Much needed. I mean, the mayor ran, his reelection campaign was all about housing affordability, and they opened a community just south of Atlanta City Hall, that were also made out of shipping containers, much smaller than the one that the Waterworks one, but he is committed to like 1,000 doors. So it's impressive to see that he's moving forward with it, but I'll see what everybody else does.
There you go. All right, my friends. Happy Monday. Go sell some real estate. Bye.
Making money Monday, gotta make some money.
Thank you.
Always.